Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name is Zee Garcia.
I'm Camilla.
And I'm Chris Yee.
Today, we're going to be doing our top 10 up-and-coming designers. This is something we left pretty loosey-goosey, I have to admit. And we might have even kind of our own interpretation of that. There's no hard or fast rule here, so just go with us on this one. I actually debated on a couple.
I did.
Because I thought, well, they've kind of been around for a while. What's the cutoff here? You know, is they've done 5 games. Is that too many?
Right.
They've done 6, but I've never even heard of 4 of them. Is that too many?
Or is it 5 within a 2-year span, or 5 within a 6-year span?
Yeah.
Or I have one that I thought of and I didn't include that I think is becoming more prolific, but as a designer, whereas before it was more developer. So if you look at his name, he has like 20 games to his name, but those aren't ones that he specifically
You will be getting crap for that one.
I did not include it because I didn't want to hear said crap from
You're
Zee
still gonna get
Garcia.
crap.
Do not want that crap.
So our point being, shut up about it. It's just a list for fun.
It's a list for fun. It's a list for if people are saying, like, who's some newer designers you could see becoming bigger names. These are people that I would say, like, if you haven't heard, I assume that the majority of these people aren't like, oh yeah, that guy's a household name. You know what I mean? This is not a Reiner currency.
I mean, to be fair, I think there are very few designers that are household names. Like, designers are not something that I have historically like followed. You know, I mean, it's something that I've had just as I put more games in my collection, that kind of stuff. But for me, it's more. This was an interesting list as I'm putting it together. It's like, I found a designer or found a game that I liked, and I was like, oh, what else has this designer done? And then looked, and like as I kind of discover the pedigrees is how it came to be.
Yeah.
And what it became for me is like, now that I've put the names to them and that kind of stuff, if a new game is coming out from this person, I'm going to look at it because of their, I don't want to say their growing pedigree, you know, kind of like they're becoming on my list to look out for. They're not the Ryan Lockett, for example. You know, they're not a Ryan Lockett. I know that name. I'm checking out the game.
Sure.
You know, but it's like on that path.
I agree with that. Yeah, and there is to be fair, I think there is a giant gap between household names and then probably these people we're talking about. There's like this enormous space in between of designers that you might not know by name, but if I tell you, you know, so-and-so, you're like, I don't know who that is. They did this and this and this. You go, oh, I like those games.
I like that, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's just sort of going to happen. And if you are someone who really closely follows designers and, you know, sort of store their name in your head, maybe you'll know those people. But it's a little less likely.
I think on average, if you say, hey, this person, my number 7, this person, like, I would say on average, like less than half of Dice Tower reviewers are going to be like, yeah, but more than half of Dice Tower reviewers would be like, Elizabeth Hargrave, yeah, I've heard of her. Yeah, she's a rising star, but she's already kind of breached that chasm that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. Plus, she's done a lot of interviews, a lot of content.
Yeah,
she's out there,
very
you know?
visible,
and her name and her game, the game Wingspan, was enormous. So it's like having one film director who makes a giant movie.
Right.
It's like, okay, yes, they're kind of like it now.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick it off with number 10. Here we go.
All right, so starting off with number 10, this is, I am curious how many people are going to say, like, oh, I know that name, simply because some people are more, I'm going to keep that name in mind. So my number 10, his name, I'm going to try to pronounce it correctly, is Brazilian. Zee Menges.
Don't know.
Zee Menges. So, Brazilian designer, this is a picture of him from Diversão, the convention that Tom just went to down in Brazil, where, so this guy's done 2 games that I think people will know. The first is Brazil Imperial, and the second is World Wonders.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's a pretty solid first 2 games to have to your name, right? I think Brazil Imperial is a neat 4X Euro game. More Euro than 4X, but they're all still there. And then World Wonders, I think, is going to have much more kind of broad appeal. This one being picked up from Arcane Wonders, I think, is a neat fit there. But I mean, talk about a guy who can make things that feel familiar and yet still feel kind of fresh. I think that these two feel fresh for for the genres that they're in.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, again, he's not even on my radar right now, but I like I like the one game. The other one looked interesting. I haven't played Brazil Imperial yet.
Well
but
received, yeah.
Yeah, that World Wonders game is amazing. I loved it. Wow. Yeah. Just goes to show you again. I feel like I'm going to be hearing a bunch of names. I'm like, who? Oh, doing that thing we were just talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Who's second here?
Who's
It's you?
second? Who?
Z.
It's me? All right. You
Never
wait
mind.
your
Oh,
turn.
wait, I'm waiting my turn.
All right.
Well, tell me what to do.
My number 10 is an Italian designer whose name is Fabio Lopiano. I hope I'm pronouncing this right, and I'll be saying that a lot, by the way. Who has designed such games as Three Ring Circus, Autobahn, Zapotec, Kalimala, that I literally just saw a second edition for on Kickstarter.
Yes.
Like 12 minutes ago. And then the one that I'm like, oh yeah, Rising Star for me, Merv. He designed Merv. That was a Euro game, kind of like a very dry, thinky, crunchy game that felt very much like a German design. And I'm like, oh, it's from this Italian designer that is killing it with these Euro-style designs. So this is my number 10 because these games tend to not really be my main wheelhouse. That's why it's number 10.
Oh, interesting. Did you consider that, how much you like their games and how high they were?
Yeah. That's
I
kind of
absolutely
the
did
main
not.
Is it like alphabetical? How did you do it?
Nope. I mean, some of my top ones I've not played any of their games, but it's ones that, again, designers that I think are on the rise, regardless of my taste in their games.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yours is a little more personal. Yours is a little more general.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were going to say,
More crap.
I didn't know where you were going with that. I was like, say it, Chris.
Your list is more crap.
Say it. Yeah. Also, that was my short list. Yep.
Really? Really?
He was on my short list. And I thought that maybe to me, he was a name that is pretty solid at this point. So he was my very short list.
Yeah, that's another
list crap.
No, again, it's that like
Yeah.
he could have dropped off the list, because it's like, well, that's already like 4 or 5 big games.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that being said, my number 10 is Henry Autobahn. Autobahn,
I think it's right.
Autobahn, and I debated the same thing. Is
Yes.
he still up and coming versus is he established?
Yes.
And so mine made it, yours didn't, but they were right there together.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, so you see a couple of his games here. I think that he is up and coming, and you see the roots of his design in all 3 of these games, but you can also kind of see that evolution. So I think as he's up and coming, you kind of see him. I have seen in his designs kind of stretching his wings also and expanding. His wingspan, some might say.
Yep. See, it's funny because Parks is a really big game, but I don't feel like his name got as big as like with Hargrave with Wingspan.
Right, yeah.
Like she became a known entity, whereas Parks became the known entity.
Right.
So,
I think that goes back to what Zee was saying too, how she's also done interviews and put herself out there and kind of been the face of that game at the same time, whereas he is has taken, I feel, I don't know, a little bit more of that backseat and just let the game sell. So
I think it's probably, I don't know, I think, because it's still like if you see a new game from him, they will say, Henry Autobahn, designer of Parks, like they will still use that.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I just think Parks has been a good seller, I assume. Wingspan was like an event.
Mega hit.
Yeah,
Right.
it was like a thing,
Yeah.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
And I agree, that's a good call. He's not someone who made it on my list. I honestly didn't think of it.
Yeah, me either. But that is a really good pick.
But it is a good pick.
Hey.
Despite the fact your list is crap, that's a great starting
Yeah,
point.
no,
Appreciate that,
yeah, that's good. That's a really good one. There you go.
There you go, my number 10.
My number 9 is someone who has only designed one game so far. And I had that debate this way of like, is that enough to make my list or not? But
Interesting. I'll tell you what I did. No one on my list has one game. If they had one game, they're out, immediately out, because they could be a one-hit wonder.
they could be, yeah.
Right?
This one, I feel a little bit more confident. I feel more excited that if she puts out another game, I'm instantly lined up. So her name is Carmen Garcia Jimenez. She's also going to be known as the designer of Jerusalem. and that's because Jerusalem
wow.
impressed me that much. She is a theologian, actually, and so Jerusalem Anno Domini being a game that kind of mixes her passion for theology and religion and then mixing it with her other passion of board gaming,
Wow.
I thought was a really cool mix. And so that, I'm really hoping that this was not a fluke, a one-hit wonder, as you say, because if she announces at any point, hey, I've got another one coming out, blending this different aspect, or maybe more focused on this parable, or something like it, or she might just not even pursue the theological part of it at all and just make another game. To me, it doesn't matter. I'm lined up. I'm very excited that she was able to make as big of a splash as she did with this one.
That's always so interesting to me when somebody from a different field says, okay, I'm making a board game about my field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because that's different. If you're a board game maker and you're like, I want to do one about, I don't know, plants.
Yeah, I'm
So
going
I'm
to
going to
go
go read a book
tomatoes.
about plants. I'm going to research about plants. But if you're like, I'm a botanist,
Yeah.
I'll make a board game. I'm like, that's interesting.
I wonder
Yeah.
if
It's the
that's
same thing, really. You know, they have to study board games, right, to do that.
Yeah.
But I just find that fascinating what they can draw from.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because then at that point they're finding the mechanisms to fit the theme that they want to represent.
Yeah.
And a lot of times some of the best games we see that do that have that real good thematic integration again, and that'll come from it. So that's interesting. I wonder if it's an interesting topic.
I thought of it first.
I'm like
so
thinking. Sorry, I'd like came
You're out,
like,
okay? It's
like,
mine.
So far down
Top
this
10
rabbit
people
hole.
that
You're just
should make
talking
games
over.
about the thing that they studied and stuff. Coming soon to Kickstarter.
So number 9, Carmen Garcia Jimenez. She's the only person on this list with just one game design so far, though.
Yeah, I thought of
but I had that reasoning, I feel like.
I did
finally.
not disclude anyone just for one game. None of them made my list, but I didn't disclude them off the bat because they only had one game. Because I thought the same thing. I was like, one game, they put them on my radar, they could be rising. I'm checking out this next one because of that. And so that was enough reasoning for them to be rising. Now they might rise and fall flat, but it's still a rise.
Yeah. I don't know. I just didn't. It felt like, well, I don't know yet. That's, I guess, how it felt. Like up and coming star. I was like, well, I don't know if they're up and coming. They had a game, it might have been an amazing game. But that might be it. And many people are, there's lots of games that, or designers, I should say, that put out a game, 2, and they're done. They're content.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's just kind of where I fell on it. All right, so my number 9 is a designer by the name of Rita Model, I believe is how you say her last name. And she is, her best known game is a game that came out some time ago, a dexterity game called Men at Work. Men at Work came out from Pretzel Games. It's a really cool looking game in which you're stacking, it sort of looks like that Tokyo Highway game. And you're stacking little planks and you're stacking little people with little hard hats and stuff on it, trying to, play this dexterity game. And then that Llamas and Alpacas just came out at Essen this year. And then King of 12, which also has a Queen of 12 follow-up coming out. So, like, very different games. The Llamas and Alpacas I haven't played yet, but it seems very abstract. It's like a sort of like tactical grid abstract game. And then Men at Work is like as pretty far as you can get from that.
Right.
Dexterity, like components first kind of game. So I thought that was interesting, and I like seeing that range in people right off the bat. If somebody comes out with a few games and it's like they kind of love doing it all, they say, okay, I've explored dexterity, so I'm putting that down for a while. I'm going to make a 2-player game that's positional based. I'm like, that's really different from the last thing. I like that, Some designers like to tackle games that way, I think, and some don't. Some are very iterative, they sort of, like Henry Audubon, I think, is someone who works on his own ideas, and he sort of iterates on what he does.
And he's refining or trying a little.
Yeah, he
off the
tries
path,
little
but he's-
changes on what he's already done.
Right.
Which is nothing wrong with that. That's
Yeah,
the way
it's different.
he's doing it. But I think I like this approach a little better. So my number 9, Rita Model.
Funny, I haven't heard of any of those games or her, so that's interesting. I'll check it out.
She's really cool. Met her at Esther's, very nice and everything. But it's also cool because she had Men at Work was her only title for a bit, then King of 12, and also this year I think there's 3 or 4 coming out, for which that's always exciting to see.
Yeah.
Interesting. My next one hasn't had anything for a while, but with the ones that he had that I do like, and it's one again, I'm going to be checking out what he does come up with next, and that is Paul Salomon. Salomon.
Oh,
I'm
this was on my
really
short
bad
list.
at pronouncing names.
Paul Solomon, huh?
Yeah,
What
but
has
it's
he done?
Salomon, so Solomon. Yeah, so he did Honey Buzz and then Genotype as well.
Yeah.
And I think, it's interesting because you talked about how somebody is in a different field, and if they approach it, coming from their field of expertise and look at board games,
This guy's a honey expert.
No, he's not. That's not my point. The thing is, I feel like in his games, it feels like they are. You can really see the depth of research and the thematics and that kind of stuff as they come through. I'm speaking specifically about Genotype here. I remember playing through that and being like, wow, there's so much in here to digest, like scientifically, that it feels like an expert designed this game. In the field. But he's not. He's a board game designer, and so I really, really like that. And I think just seeing that integration in his works here, I think is really impressive, and the amount of research and depth and just that he puts into his designs. So really like both of these, and look forward to seeing hopefully what comes next.
This is a good one. Definitely was on my short list.
It's funny because this is one of my blind spots where these are great games, and for some reason I've never attached that name to both of them and made me think, Paul Solomon, someone to check out.
Right.
So I'm the kind of person I like to nerd out. I like to learn all the band members' names of my favorite bands and stuff. And so even I will just miss something like this. So this is a really cool pick.
Yeah, connect those two games together.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about range, Z, with your first few designs being just very different from each other. That's the same thing with my number 8. His name is Clarence Simpson. And
I don't know who this is.
So he's not made a household name for himself yet, but I feel like...
Yeah, I like your hope there. You're like...
I really think he's going to. So his first 3 games, okay? He was a co-designer on The Wolves.
Okay.
Great kind of area control type game. Chomp, the little card-laying game, and then that one up top, The Message from the Stars.
Which is like a deduction game.
Yeah, that's that word deduction math logic game that Tom and I played.
Wow.
That's part of the upcoming all-play Kickstarter.
He's one I thought of and I forgot until you said The Wolves. I was like, that's right. It was this. Yep. I looked at him as well.
Not one I thought of.
Yeah, and it's weird because you look at those 3 games and you think that there's not much connective tissue. They're very wildly different.
Yeah.
And so I have so much respect for that. Message from the Stars being when Joe was like, "Hey, you're going to play this live," I was like, "Are you sure?" Because it's a lot it's a lot of mental load and everything. But it's so funny that I just would not be like, "Oh yeah, it's clear the guy who made The Wolves is going to make this game as well." I like all 3 of these a lot. I think that this is a guy who should be more of a household name. Clarence Simpson. Keep that one in your minds, folks. Keep that one in your minds. If you see a new game coming out from him, could be a 5-hour area control game, could be a 30-second
roll and write.
Who knows?
That's interesting. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. We're up to where are we at? Number 8.
3. Oh.
3.
I mean, we're doing our third choice,
third
which
one.
10 minus we're at 8.
Camilla's like, I'm done.
My number is 2.
I'm on my third pick, which is number 8.
Okay. My number 8 is a designer from Spain, and again, it's right on the cusp of kind of being big already, but I still don't think people know that name. And the name is Germán P. Millán. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce that name, assuming because they're from Spain. And they have done Bitoku, they have done Bamboo, Kingdom Defenders, Orb Hunters was where I first found out about this designer, and it's a little, very light little card game. And I just love it when a designer comes out with some small card game, something that I find a bit of a curio mostly, and then very quickly goes, whoop, and they level up. You know what I mean? Where now it's like, I know Bamboo is like getting a ton of love right now. One of their, one of his newest games, but Bitoku got a lot of attention. That Kingdom Defenders game didn't really make a splash, but it's a big design. Had a second edition at Essen this year. So yeah, this is just, again, he seems to be making these big, epic moves in the design space, and I really like that. So this is one that I knew was going to make my list. The name is like on the fringes of my mind at this point. Like I'll see it on the box and go, that's the guy who did the thing. Yes, you know what I mean? But
Okay.
but still not quite there. So that's, again, it's just about to crest, I think, as a designer. So yeah, my number 8, Herman P. Millán, I think.
Yep.
All right. My number 8 is it's actually 2 people, but both of their designs have been together, so I put them as one pick here. It's the guys from Nauvoo Games, Brett Sobel and Seth Van Orden. So they did The Reckoners, and then they did Raising Robots, which came out not long ago. Both of these games I do really, really like. But what kind of impressed me, what you were talking about earlier, is just the difference of these games. I mean, they're so very different. I mean, The Reckoners is very much kind of feels thematics first. You know, if you've read the books, it makes the game run smoother, more interesting, more thematic, and you see all those touches to it. But I think at the end of the day, it is a very strong cooperative game with a lot of highs to it. Raising Robots is engine, tableau, building Euro goodiness, you know. But again, you see those thematics integrated into it. But at the same time, it's just fun. Your head is down. You're building these inventions and putting it together and triggering all kinds of endorphins the whole time for me.
Yeah.
But I really like that. So I like that they have the 2 sides. You can tell where they started with thematics and went something. You can tell where they started with mechanisms and went something. I think both end products were very well developed. From a design standpoint. So for me, that these 2 back-to-back here have put them on the map.
They do take their time in between designs, for sure.
Yeah.
But these guys also run the company, if I'm not mistaken.
That's
they do,
correct,
yeah. I believe they are Nauvoo Games.
Yeah, which is cool. That's very cool.
I should have considered them. I didn't. They didn't come to mind. But you're right. They really should be more. There should be some more attention for them.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that they are taking their time. I mean, The Reckoners was what, 2018?
It's been a while, yeah.
Maybe 17, 18, somewhere in there. And Raising Robots is just now. Like, I like that.
No, faster.
I like it. No, I'm good.
Let's
Make
go.
it worth it.
All right, my number 7 is also a team. They have not designed exclusively together, but they have also done stuff on their own with other co-designers. They are 2 fellas from Spain, from the Catalan region.
I didn't realize we were putting down. I need a phone. I didn't realize we were like putting down where people are from.
Oh, it's fine. I just did
yeah.
for some of these because,
I just happen to
like, if
to
you're
know that
American, I am mentioning where you're from, okay?
Right, that doesn't make sense. Why would you not?
They're from Ohio or something, you know.
So my number 7 design duo of Ferran Renalias and Eloy Pujadas. So these 2 are very
call.
impressive. Together they did the Battle of Versailles, which I've played. We haven't reviewed yet, but the review's coming. They also did that Take a Seat game, that roll and write type one about punching out tickets and seating people. It's like a polyomino game, roll and write type thing, but no random elements to it. It's like this weird passing back and forth between the 2 people. You know,
Yeah.
that was such a cool standout game that felt fresh in a genre of game that's very hard to feel fresh in at this
Yes.
point. On their own, I know Ferran's worked on Lacrimosa, which is kind of like Bitoku. Like that's such a big game that I think it could have gotten his name into people's minds, but he's not quite there yet. And then Eloy did Zoom in Barcelona, which was a surprisingly fun, very light family weight game. I don't know, just the spread that you see between their co-designs together, some of the stuff they do off on their own. These guys are really impressive. I like them a lot. So Ferran Renalias and Eloy Pujadas, my
That's a good
number
call.
7.
I didn't think about them. That's a good call.
Very nice. All right, my number 6 is also we all having 2 people here at the same time?
Wow.
All right, fine. My number 6 is 2 people as well. And as far as I know, I'm sorry, 6. I was 7. My bad.
Oh, yes, good catch. 7.
My number 7 is 1 person.
Wait. Oh, we are on 7 because I go last.
Okay,
Yes.
it's one person, but sometimes I hang out with another person, I'm sure, and then there are two people hanging out.
Like in this picture.
Like, we're like hanging out with like a baby, you know what I mean? That's two people.
No. The big one's the vehicle, and the baby's driving.
The baby's the designer. No, this is a Japanese designer whose name I'm going to try to say. It's Masato Uesugi. Masato Uesugi. And they have done Welcome to the Dungeon, Welcome Back to the Dungeon, Paper Tales, the big one for me, and then a brand new game, Lunar, which is only brand new because it's a reprint. It came out some time ago as a trick-taking game that's going to be coming out soon from All Play. Again, these are pretty different games. Paper Tales kind of feels like Seven Wonders in a punchier kind of package. That's probably reductionist to Seven Wonders, but it's Seven Wonders like, and I really enjoy it. It's got a great look, really interesting mechanisms. Lunar seems like a really clever trick-taking game with like sort of suits and numbers split across different cards, so that you play in partnerships and you follow, you play either the suit or the number and your partner plays the other thing. So together you play like a 5 in red, 5 red, really interesting. And again, just seeing those few designs, how different they are, how interesting they are. This is one of those names that I'm going to have to keep an eye out for. See what else comes out, what else maybe comes out in Japan first and then gets brought over or picked up and sort of widely distributed. And I think this just the depth of designers in other parts of the world that I'm not familiar with is tremendous, but I have to start somewhere, and this is one of those names,
Yeah.
that I'm like, yeah, this is one I want to keep on the list, one that I want to start being able to sort of recognize written somewhere and go, the Paper Tales designer, yes, I love Paper Tales. So, yeah, my number 7, Masato Uesugi.
I haven't tried Lunar yet, but it makes me even more excited too, knowing it's the same guy who did Paper Tales. That's a neat little game.
Yeah.
For my number 7, we have a crossover.
Alrighty.
And that is with Chris's number 10. I'll let him pronounce it again.
Zee Menges.
There we go. So this is the guy who did Brazil Imperium and then went on for World Wonders as well. I think it just
Interesting. How did I miss this?
paving just a really nice path for himself with these two designs, and both very. Well, I was impressed with World Wonders that sitting down and playing it ties into our conversation this morning in Smorgasbord, where there wasn't anything like, oh, this is new, I love this new thing that it's doing. All the mechanisms were very comfortable, but the gameplay was smooth, and the gameplay felt innovative in the way it used those mechanisms.
Yes.
And so for me, that was just really an interesting take on something already comfortable. So yeah, so for me, number 7 is
Zee Menges.
my number 7.
My number 6 is where I ask for a little bit of forgiveness and flexibility as I attempt to pronounce his name. So number 6, a Taiwanese board game designer. I think that this is his pen name. He goes by Zong Ger. Zong Ger, G-E-R, right? He has I've looked on Board Game Geek and it's confusing because he has like multiple different names, one of which is Bob. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna go with Zong Ger because that's what's printed on the boxes of his.
Got it. Your number
Yeah,
6
yeah.
is Bob.
So Zong Ger, I mean, first of all, just vegetable stock alone,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
right? That made me go, okay, gonna keep Zong Ger in my mind. And then I played the Taiwan Night Market, which is a gorgeous game. It's like a mix between. It's like a softer food chain magnate with a little bit of the bidding from like Chinatown. It's a fun little mix of things. I need to get it played again here soon.
Okay.
And then Christmas Tree, I demoed very briefly at Essen, and it's a cool little kind of open drafting game. Like imagine if you took Century Spice Road and you just distilled it down to cards and made it really fast and put an adorable Christmas theme
It
on
already is distilled down to just cards.
No.
More
Just cards.
distilled.
More distilled. I mean, it truly is just cards. And so this is great. Like this is a
Wow.
designer that I'm now like I'm all for. anytime that I see him coming out with the next little card game or even something bigger, I know that he can do both well.
Yeah, that's really
Interesting.
cool.
That's
Okay.
all right.
Yep. So
I have played vegetable stock, and I like that. It's really clever. And then Taiwan Night Market, I've heard good things of.
Yep. So Zong Ger.
All right, my number 6 is, like I said a moment ago, 2 people. And they are from, as far as I know, America. Maybe Canada. I don't know. America. This is Ben Rossett and Matthew O'Malley. And they have done The Search for Planet X is the big one for me. But then also Between Two Cities and First in Flight, which just came out not too long ago and was so interesting and sort of used mechanisms in a way, mechanisms we've seen in other stuff. This, sort of push your luck idea of developing a flying vessel and then trying to go for a flight as you are inventing, flight. But the way it handles those ideas is so clever, like so outside the box, that I thought, okay, that's cool. And then, but jumping from those 2 names on that box and realizing when I go back that they're the same people that did The Search for Planet X, The Search for Planet X on its own would have been enough. Because that game is brilliant. It is just one of those deduction games that it uses an app even, but it's so clever, it's so distinct. It's its own thing. And again, if even if First in Flight hadn't been such an interesting design, I still would be like, oh yeah, these guys are really interesting. They do great stuff. Between Two Cities, I never played. I heard it was fine, and some people I know really like it. But yeah, these are 2 cool designs, and these guys seem to be doing really interesting stuff together. So for me, Ben Rossett and Matthew O'Malley, that's a duo to keep an eye on.
This is my Paul Solomon moment where I was like, I did not connect these games together. And if I did, it would have made the list. Yeah, I did not.
I thought this might be a crossover with you.
Yeah,
actually.
I did not put these games together.
Yeah.
So,
That's fun. Yeah. No, so Search for Planet X is a huge spot where I'm like, I need to play this game finally. I keep hearing so much good about it. So.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, number 6. My number 6 is Olivier Scipiere. Oh.
You never took French, did
No.
you?
Nope, I failed Italian twice. Does that count?
Pronounce it like a failed Italian.
I can fingerspell it.
So Olivier Scipiere, maybe?
There you go. Yep, just like I said. This is the guy that did Valbara and then the Jekyll and Hyde versus Scotland Yard.
Oh, okay. Well, this might have made my list then.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's
Didn't put it together. Valbara, so this goes back to what I was saying before. It's when you're playing this game, there's nothing... I mean this positively, so hear out the whole statement. There's nothing innovative about the game at all, but the gameplay feels innovative in the way it's making you play. And it's not. I remember when I played it, it's not a mechanism that I tend to like that simultaneous card selection or action selection, something like that, roll selection, and then reveal, and oh, you took this and I took that. Wow, now I got. You feel like you put so many eggs in one basket and doesn't play. Pan out. I don't like that. Valbara is the one that kind of made me pause on that and go, maybe I don't universally hate that.
Okay.
And then I think so. Then going into and now having a cooperative design with the Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, I really think that he is kind of showing again that growth, in his designs here, and I'm excited to see where it's going.
Yeah, that's cool. This is not one I came across, I guess, Yeah. I like Valbara a lot. I thought that was I liked it way more than you did.
You did, yes.
As a card game, I thought it was great.
Yeah, you went into it not universally already hating the genre.
I like that. I like that genre all right. I don't necessarily love simultaneous selection stuff, but I don't discount it. But yeah, that's interesting. To be fair, and I guess mild spoilers here, but a lot of French designers are for me up and coming names. I don't know what it is. The French game designing world is my playground.
I feel that way for you.
I also feel like it's kind of, not that it's growing or it's becoming more accessible, but like there is more of it. I feel like
There's
moving forward, it's more accessible, or
There's like a tremendous amount of mentorship, it seems, in
maybe
France
that's it.
with game designers.
Yeah.
I wonder, right? Because you have kind of I'm going to speak completely unqualified. You have like the old, the old guard, so to speak. You got your couple of Brunos and some
Right.
other designers there,
Right.
and then because I think of, for example, wow, who's one of the guys that did Nautilus Island?
I don't know.
There's a couple of
them, yeah.
There's a few French designers who've been around that I'm like, oh yeah, they're kind of the new up and comers. And,
Yeah, yeah,
and I
right.
realized no, they've upped and came already. They're now well-known designers, and they seem to be tutoring and working with newer
Yeah,
designers
yeah.
as well.
That seems to be a thing though in France, and at least in their world, in their board game designing world, and I'm all over it. I love it.
Yeah.
But let's not talk about it anymore because I need to save some of these names.
Yeah, I was like, we're back.
Yes.
All right, my number 5 is the second Brazilian designer on my list.
Oh, I see how it is.
I didn't know I needed to look up where they're from. Like, I thought we were talking about the design. There we go. Okay.
Well, okay, so
You guys are killing me.
I'm sorry. Well, to be fair, the first one had a game called Brazil Imperial, right? And then I saw a very Portuguese-looking name. I was like, oh, he's from Brazil.
So you assumed.
Well, I looked it up because I was like,
okay.
I wonder, yay! And now this designer, his name is Robert Coelho. A best attempt, right? Robert Coelho is someone that it was easy to know that he's Brazilian because his first game was published only in Brazil so far, and that is
All right, I'm
Comic
with you so
Hunters.
far.
Yeah. So Comic Hunters alone, this is one of those guys where if I had only played this first game, kind of like you were saying, Zee, like, oh, I don't know, right? One game alone doesn't make a good designer. I played Stonks, which is his second game, is a trick-taking game that I liked. I think I enjoyed it more than you. And I was surprised Wendy really liked this one a lot, actually.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's a neat little trick-taking game that uses this kind of almost like the vegetable stock, where things
Yeah, I
fluctuate.
liked it actually. I liked it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then I also know that he's done some development work on other games from companies down in Brazil. So I think he's doing more than just putting out his own designs as
Okay.
well. So there's respect there. But in terms of just the things that he's designed, these are cool. Like Stonks is cool. Comic Hunters is great. And I'm not trying to harp that horn. And it should be getting more available at some point. There's talks of, you know what I mean? So I really hope so. I really hope so, because I think Comic Hunters is phenomenal. It was one of those first times that I was like, oh, guy's first time design, immediately, like, seared in my brain.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so Robert Coelho.
All right, my number 5 is a crossover with Chris here, but I do feel kind of bad because it's for he mentioned a duet of designers, and I only picked one of the two.
Well, my duet is kind of my cheat to get both
Your
on the
duet
list.
was kind of yeah.
Because he also did show their individual designs.
You did.
So.
I'm thinking just
Yeah.
So my number 5 is Eloy Pujadas, and his games that are again on that make me put him on the list are, like you mentioned already, Zoom in Barcelona was the first one I played from him, and I only found out, oh, this is one of his going back now.
Yeah.
You know, and being
okay,
like,
yeah.
oh, I played we played this little Zoom in Barcelona game live, I think.
He was on a Spectacular or something.
Yeah, and I'm like, that was really cool. It was kind of like a Ticket to Ride-ish little game, a connection game, moving around, getting things. Oh, Barcelona. He's from Barcelona. Oh, makes sense. And then Take a Seat, which I played with you, Chris, and I thought it did something pretty neat using the sort of roll and write or whatever space. It is, if somebody said, like, what's the most distinct roll and write? I can pretty safely say, oh, Take a Seat is like the most different one.
Huh. Yeah.
You know?
Very likely.
You're doing like polyomino stuff, but you're like chipping away at the polyomino. And then you do something, you mark it, you pass it to the player on this side, then you take the one from over here and you do something, you pass it back, you take this one. It's weird, but it's clever. It's really interesting. And then the
Battle of
Versailles would be the other one. He's also got that 1902.
Ooh, I'm
I think
really
it is. I
excited
haven't
to
played
try
that
that
yet,
one.
but that's his as well. So yeah, I really like the stuff he's doing. And there's like one of the games coming out from that Zombie Paella people in Spain is one of his games. He's plugged into a few sort of publishers, both in Spain and outside of Spain.
That's interesting.
And I'm like, okay, cool. He's an up and comer. Like he's probably one of the best definitions of an up and comer. Plugged into different publishers in his own country and therefore his own sort of smaller sphere. Starting to get his name out there. Zoom in Barcelona gets picked up by Blue Orange. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, he's an up and comer. And I'm very glad for that because his game seemed to be clever and put that cleverness first. I respect that. So that's my number 5, Eloy Pujadas.
Very nice. My number 5 is Luke Raymond. Raymond?
Don't know who that is.
Oh.
Never heard of it.
Who is it?
Let's see. He was on my short list. He's one of the designers on Sky Team, right?
Yes, yes, he is. And again, I started with one, I kind of went backwards and was really surprised. Splitto, Fruito Play, and Sky Team.
This was on my short list. I did look at this person.
Right, and I thought that was just a really interesting trio of games, that, I think there was a couple more as well, but these are the 3 that I was most familiar with and kind of stuck out to me. I like Splitto and Fruit to Play, how they're basic little simple card games. But I thought that they both did something interesting. Fruito Play in the trick taking, Splitto in drafting, so 2 different mechanisms, but they both made me go like, huh, that's interesting.
Right.
And then Sky Team I thought was just a phenomenal design. I understand that was also a team of them, but I thought it was really phenomenal in this cooperative, limited communication that didn't feel frustrating. And so I just looking at this trio of games as I kind of did the research backwards from him, it was like, wow, he's really, again, up and coming, kind of making this name for himself in these different designs and working with others as well. So he's put himself on the map for me.
I'm really happy that you picked it. I think Luke Raymond's a great pick, and like I said, he was really close to making mine. I think he's like in the 11 or 12 position.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I just didn't recall the name, but I did look at these and go, oh, okay, this was in the running for me as well.
Yeah,
very
and he's
nice.
from France, says Mike Heller.
Nice. You did it too. You figured out where we're from.
Fire. Use your resources. Well done. My number 4 from America.
America? Which one?
America, yeah, which one?
I don't know, one of them.
Oh,
This America, that America?
North, South, and Central, right? Which one is it? No, so he's actually a Floridian. He's actually an Orlandian.
This made me more nervous.
So my number 4.
Okay, yeah.
My number 4, Mihir Shah. So Mihir is actually someone that we met from our conventions first. He was a cool guy to play games with. I'll share a fun story very briefly. At one of the retreats, we tried to learn the Great Wall, the Awakened Realms game. Massacred that learning experience. We played what we thought was right. He came up to me the next day, and I was like, I quite enjoyed that one. And he was like, he was so enamored with it. He came back the next day and he was like, I taught every rule wrong.
So then he designed the game he taught you.
No, he played it like 4 more times that weekend. He's one of the smartest gamers that I know. And so when he came up and he said, hey, I have a design coming out, I was like, that's cool, man. Neat. Because it could mean anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have a design getting published. Cool. And this viticulture world is what he meant. And I thought that is a phenomenal expansion to viticulture, taking an already existing game and making it cooperative. I
really need to try this. I have not tried Viticulture World.
I
should try it.
Yeah.
My viticulture's not getting used. This might bring it back to the table.
Yeah.
I just played Viticulture, the app, actually.
You did, that's
And what's
right.
happening? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a solid expansion, very thinky, and requires teamwork, and I think it's super good. And so, because I know him personally, and because Viticulture World is really good, he said, do you want to try? So that other box cover up there, people haven't seen yet, that's Ross, A Dance of Love, which is a prototype that he's been showing off so far, and it's There's no official announcement or anything on it yet, but keep an eye out for Raas, R-A-A-S, A Dance of Love, because it's a neat, rotating board, dice drafting game.
It's really pretty on the table.
It's
That's all I.
Gorgeous, yeah.
It really is.
And when you see it, you're like, got it, this comes from the brain of a guy who could play Awakened Realms games 4 times in a weekend and be like, this is really fun. Yeah. So Mihir Shah, great guy and great designer.
All right, my number 4 is a French designer. And this is the designer's name is Maxime Rambourg, I think, or Rambourg. There was sort of a little bit of a gap from the first design, which put them on the map for me, and that is Big Book of Madness. I really like Big Book of Madness.
Yeah.
But that game didn't really
Okay.
do so well. Like, it kind of stumbled out of the gate. From what I hear, there were like issues with the printing, so the first edition had like mistakes coming out of yellow, something. But then they're part of the design team that put out the Loop, and part of the design team that put out that Dracula, what's it called? Dracula versus Van Helsing, yeah. And I looked him up on BGG because I was trying to figure out, like, as I was doing all this research, he has 6 games coming out between 2023 and 2024. There are 6 games attributed to Monsieur Rambourg there. So,
Wow.
pretty impressive, definitely on the up and up. From a few designs to suddenly, like, that explosion is like happening right now for this designer, and I love it because I really do like the designs. Big Book of Madness is a neat cooperative deck building game, very interesting, very neat and fun game to play, very vibrant game. The Loop is not my favorite, but it's a cool co-op game with this weird twisty time looping thing. And then I thought that the Dracula versus Van Helsing was a cool 2-player, almost subtle sort of drafting card placement thing with Theo Rivere, who was the person you couldn't think of a while ago.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
We figured it out in between numbers here. But yeah, Maxime Rambourg, this is one that I'm definitely keeping an eye on. Really like their stuff. So my number 4.
Very nice. My number 4 is Fabien Gridel. So he's the guy who did Turing Machine and Path of Civilization. And I think when you were just talking about, can't think of his name to save my life now.
Luc Raymond? Or
No, our buddy from Orlando.
Mihir.
I'm so sorry.
He's not watching this.
That's true. You don't watch us. When you talk about that and how you can like see people's minds, come into their board game designs, and I'm playing, I'm like, oh, yep, I'm too dumb for this. Like that's how these designs make me feel. But like there definitely is that audience for them, and you can just see that behind it. And I think that he has shown really solid design work in both of these games, and it's. I think individually these games would have put him on the map, and then putting them together is just really impressive.
And they're pretty different games, these two.
Yes.
Now, he's got also that
Archaeologic.
one is a little Turing Machine-ish. But that Path of Civilization is nothing like those other two. Not really, but it's interesting. It's
Right.
He does interesting sort of distillations of stuff.
Another guy on my short list, but I couldn't feel comfortable. I hadn't played Path of Civilization or Archaeologic. I'd only played Turing Machine, I was already considering him just off of that one alone.
Now, Path of Civilization I really like. Turing Machine's so not for me.
Right. This is one that I told you earlier I picked that I've played none of his games. But from hearing you guys talk about him, seeing him no, because we're talking about the designers. We're not talking about our favorite designers. No, so it's like, but I can see again. We're here in the office. We see the games played. You talk about them, that kind of stuff. I'm familiar, very familiar with the games because of that, and so, yeah.
No, that's good reasoning. It really is.
Disagree. Disagree.
Great.
Disagree. No.
This is great. No. I also never explicitly said earlier, I know the chat was guessing, like, oh, is Roy going to be on the list? The average Dice Terror viewer has heard of Roy Cannaday. He's not on the list. I wanted to clarify
Yeah,
when I was
no.
like, my next designer's a Floridian. I could already tell.
Did you say that during that? That's so bad.
Yeah, so anyway, just clarifying, he ain't on the list. Number 3, though,
Maybe someday.
is another designer from Spain, and I bring this up not to brag, that I did my research.
That I did the research when no parameters were given.
Right?
All right,
This
Chris
guy.
the tryhard. Got it.
And it's more so because you were talking, Z, about how France has that kind of collaborative design mentorship type of stuff.
Yeah.
So a couple of these designers who are from Spain, they workshop together a lot and they play test a lot of the stuff together. And so Eloy, who you mentioned, in Ferran, and my number 3, Danny Garcia. I don't
okay. Yeah.
They run in a similar circle and they co-design, or they're not, sometimes they co-design, but a lot of times they're play testing each other's games, giving each
Yeah.
other feedback,
Which is
working
neat.
together. I like that a lot. So Danny Garcia was the other person that I considered like, before we played Arborea, I had played Barcelona, and Barcelona is, I think, a tremendous game. And then after we played Arborea, I was like, great, he's on the list, like 100% comfortable with it now. These are both, what he seems to specialize in so far very well are these kind of heavier Euro games that if you call them heavy Euro gamers are like, they're not heavy because they're intuitive and they make sense and they're just fun to play and not convoluted and difficult. You know, and that's
Like I'm there, dude.
They're also
It's
not
like I'm
beige.
there. Yeah, he does have a lot of color in his games, doesn't he? I wonder if
Yeah.
that's just a side effect of the themes or what. But,
Right, yeah,
Because he's not illustrating these, but
So yeah.
both of these are very colorful, right?
Right.
Here's a third one coming out, another one from Board and Dice, who did Barcelona.
Yeah.
Which is Tulip Valley of the Tulips, Windmill Valley, something like that. So it's about
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah.
it's
So
about
color.
Yeah.
like all the different color rose fields and stuff around these big windmills and stuff. So like he makes colorful games for some
It's
reason.
interesting.
But again, as he's not illustrating it, he's not publishing it. So yeah, what is that? How much say does he have there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
That is
know.
Interesting.
Yeah. Also, I started like choking on my own coughing in the middle.
no,
Sorry
you're
about that.
fine. You're going to make it.
But yeah, no, Danny Garcia, super brilliant guy. Both Arborea and Barcelona, to me, are kind of like point salad-y games that don't feel like frivolous point salad.
Yeah.
Everything about them feels earned, even though like I took a turn like at Arborea where like I do these things, and all of a sudden like I get 10 points here, 9 points here, and 6 points there, but they're all like earned, and I respect that a lot. So, yeah.
As opposed to Mike DeLisio. Does not respect earned points. That's a deep cut. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. All right. What are we at? Number 3? Yes, number 3.
Sure.
My number 3 is a Taiwanese designer. That's
Yeah, I'm
right.
so proud of you. You did great.
Yeah.
Yes. Good boy.
Yeah.
Good boy.
Whose name I'm going to attempt to pronounce now. Wei Min Ling. Wei Min Ling is the designer of Walk-In in Burano, Planet Defenders, and Hanami Koji.
Okay.
So Hanami Koji, a lot of people do know. It's a 2-player, very small 2-player card game. It's sort of a drafting thing, and as you can tell, 2 of those are from Emperor S4, so I'm guessing there's a connection there. Planet Defenders was actually the first one of his games that I played, and I really liked that little game. That game flew way under the radar. But it got picked up from Renegade. It was from another publisher first. Got picked up by Renegade Game Studios, put out again. It's got these really cool little robots. It's a cooperative game of you moving out around. I think it's cooperative. It's been a while, but you move the little robots around, you collect resources, and like fix little things going wrong. You're trying to like defend this space station, basically. Hanami Koji I played after that. And it's a completely different game. 2-player, kind of thinky. Like I make an offer. I make offers to my opponent. Whatever they take, I take the other thing. It's so subtle. It's very clean. It's a very clean design. And then Walking in Burano could be on that list of like introductory kind of games. Like you can put it up there next to like Ticket to Ride, I think. It's this really neat building. The people are walking around. You put them where they need to go. It's very pleasant game. Really like that one. So Yeah, it's just interesting. Again, it's one of those names that I need to be able to recognize on a box at this point. Because if I glance at it and sort of my eyes catch, I should pick that box up and check out what it's doing, because I really tend to like these designs. So that's my number 3. And I, Planet Defenders alone, I have such fun memories with that one. I really should, put that one back on the table again. So there you go. That's my number 3.
Wow, that's awesome. It's hard to make you pronounce the name.
No,
what
it's
was it?
Wei Min Ling.
Wei Min Ling. Okay,
Ling.
and we will have these names all spelled out at the end.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the outro. Yeah. My number 3 is Jeffrey CCH. He is the designer behind Isla and Something Shiny. And then he just did, recently we just reviewed, or I think it's coming up this week, Terror Escape from him. And then he has another one coming out that they were demoing out at Essen, Age of Civilization, I believe is called. Age of Civilization.
Interesting.
Yeah, I remember Isla and Something Shiny. I didn't play that, but Tom took it home and played it.
It's called Isla Something Shiny?
Isla and Something Shiny.
Isla and Something
And
Shiny.
Something Shiny.
Yeah. It's the one with the bunny on it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay,
Yes.
I got it.
So Tom, so Tom took it home and played it, and he came back the next day and we're like, "How'd you like it?" He's like, "I don't know." And a couple hours later, he comes back and he's like, "I'm still thinking about it." And then he went home and played it again and come back. He's like, "Hey, did you like it? Did you play more?" He's like, "I think I've decided I really like it. I think." You know what I mean? But you could just tell like it stayed on his mind.
Okay.
And I thought that was really interesting. And he talked about the story and just how he was enjoying the experience of the game. Terror Escape, I guess spoilers for an upcoming review here. It hasn't gone up yet?
I think it's like tomorrow or Saturday or something. Yeah.
All right, well, spoilers. I think it was a really good thematic game with some interesting but simple mechanisms involved. And so you're going for this Island Something Shiny, this kind of choose your own adventure, cooperative storytelling game, to Terror Escape, this one versus many, a very highly thematic, not a push and pull game, I guess. It's a hunter versus hunted, kind of style game with some deduction happening in there. So just, again, the scope of the two different designs. And then, the prototype that we saw at Essen is going to be more of a Euro kind of game with some 4X elements in it.
Wow.
So it's just a really broad spectrum, but I like it. It takes me back to what we were talking about with Brett Sobel and Seth Van Orden, where taking time between the designs that we're seeing and really putting a lot of effort into it. The first time we saw the prototype for Terror Escape was a year and a half ago now, and it's just now getting into production. I really appreciate that. And this, again, just scope of his designs here, 3 back-to-back, have kind of, I think, definitely put him in the forefront of my vision on upcoming designers.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that it seems to be that his games are kind of slow burns. I think,
Yes.
I guess Tom had that experience with the Something Shiny game. I think I could see people having a similar experience with Terror Escape.
Absolutely.
We're sort of like, oh, I'm still thinking about it. That feeling of it kind of stays with you, keeps you kind of spinning your wheels a little bit. That's cool.
And it's definitely better the more you play it and the more you get to know the game. The more you get to know the game, the more you actually play the game.
That's interesting.
And get into the theme behind it and stuff like that. So, yeah, he's put himself on the map he is one to look out for me.
Cool.
Jeffrey CCH.
America.
Yes.
Which one? Let me guess. South America.
No,
This is a
unfortunately.
Canadian person.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, no.
Is it a Canadian?
No, you were wrong, I guess.
Is it one of those?
Unfortunately, I'm wrong. I thought you were like, no.
No,
what
he
are
should
you doing?
be-
Breaking
he should be
country?
Unfortunately, it's
exiled
just like, American. Is it a Canadian?
No, he's from the U.S. Anything more than that, I don't know.
Is he from Florida?
So my number 2 name is Dave Beck. And so Dave Beck, his first game, well, you can see a shirt there. His first...
I thought it was Primal in the background. I was like, I don't know that one.
Distilled. Distilled, I think, is a wonderful game. And it's a Kickstarter game that has a lot of stuff going on in it, and yet avoided, I think, the majority of like Kickstarter bloat type issues and stuff. And I find this to be a really smooth and great game. very thematic, highly thematic. And so he's also the president of the publishing company that does it, Paverson Games. Their next game, I got a demo of it, the one there called Luthier. This is not close to being done yet. It hasn't been Kickstarted yet or anything, but because I was able to mess around with his prototype at Gen Con and see what was going on with it, him using some mechanisms that I really love, a worker placement, but with hidden values. So once all the workers are out, then you reveal them. I love that.
Sure.
And so, and knowing that he's also going very thematic with how Luthier works, your instrument crafters and everything, and he really put the research in. He's not I think he is like a cellist when I think about it.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Chris broke for a second.
I did, yeah. I was like, he's not necessarily like a classical musician, but I was like, oh no, I think he actually, I think he is from our conversation.
And he loves to drink.
I assume so.
There we go. We're learning so much about him.
Okay.
This is actually his memoirs.
Have you ever heard of the drunk cellist? Now you have.
The drunk cellist of North America.
North America.
Yeah.
No, Dave Beck is a guy to keep an eye out for. I mean, and also a lot of respect for being the president of the company. I mean, he's wearing a lot of hats in there, and yet he's also designing what I think are really solid games so far.
He's one I thought of, but I didn't. I took him off my list pretty quickly because it goes back to what I was saying. I haven't played any of his games, but they're also not ones that I was around when you guys were playing.
Sure.
I'm not familiar enough either to kind of see those connections and stuff. And so it's one of those like, I can't speak enough on that one. You know, so I'm really glad you included him and do know enough because I didn't. So I think that's awesome.
Okay, no, I like his stuff a lot. So cool, Dave Beck, my number 2.
All right. My number 2 is somebody I almost missed. I was this close to missing, and I had thought of this person and sort of, I don't know why, I fell through the cracks. I was almost done with my list and then remembered or came across it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a French designer, definitely on the rise. And there's 3 games here. All 3 I've played. All 3 I really like. This is Wild Space. Oh, I'm sorry. The designer is Joachim Tom, I think.
Where you were going? Okay.
Okay. Wild Space is the first one, but then they also did Tribes of the Wind and Colorado. And they are like 3 games from 3 different companies, I'm pretty sure, because I don't remember who the original Wild Space publisher is, but I don't think it was La Botte de Jus. Colorado's from another publisher. Originally all 3 French publishers, though, so again, that board gaming world is really just rich. It's vibrant, you know. I love it. And all 3 of these games are very interesting. He seems to be a French designer that errs on the side of simplicity, a little more Euro-y than like sort of bombastic, you know, which I think French designers tend to be pretty close to down the middle with that stuff. The games tend to be very well put together and mechanically robust and sturdy, and they then sprinkle a little sauce on there, like hand action cards or player powers, whatever, you know what I mean? And his games tend to be a little more dry than that, maybe. But they're really interesting. They're very clean designs. Like Wild Space is a game unfortunately, I think it flew way under the radar, but it's a really nice card game. Then Tribes of the Wind, Mike loved that one, so he's probably talking about it in the comments already. Wild Space was catch-up games.
Catch-up games, okay.
So Tribes of the Wind is really neat. With you sort of playing cards to redevelop this world that's fallen apart and having to worry about what the other players are holding in their hand. And then Colorado is like a flip and write. Dry erase flip and write with, card play, set collection, really cool stuff. So Joachim, I think, Tom is my number 2. Definitely keeping an eye out on this designer. And there's another interesting thing, not a knock or not a positive or a negative, it's just an observation. All 3 of these games are solo designs.
Oh.
Which doesn't happen a lot in France.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
A lot of French designers work with other French designers. Like a lot, okay? Yeah. But all 3 of these are solo designs.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I need to try Colorado. That one looked it sounded interesting in I don't know if unique and fresh, but like solid.
Yeah.
Because Tribes of the Wind is great.
Yeah. Tribes of the Wind is probably the best one of the three, I would say, but they're all good.
Well, you had me there, Zee, because I thought we were going to have a crossover on this number 2 here.
Okay.
I was like, as you're going through it, now also I'm surprised this guy's not on your list.
Well, I still have one left.
And then you're like, oh, maybe I forgot about it. Oh, that's true.
What's
Well,
true?
now I don't want to go. I didn't think about it. Okay, now I feel bad.
Use a dummy.
Okay, fine. From the top. My number 2 is also a French designer, and it is Johannes Goupy. He is one that I think of the first design of his that I played was Nautilus Island, and it's one that as I was playing grew on me in the gameplay. I remember as it's being taught, you play those games sometimes, and as they're being taught, you're like, I'm not gonna like this. All right,
Exactly.
bye,
That's exactly what it's like playing with Camilla. That's what it's like. Okay, you're like, hey, you want to play a game with me? Yep. Go ahead and set it up.
Sure.
Okay, so in this game,
is
so
a
you're trying to get the most
trick-taking
victory
game.
points.
And you might think that you do it in your mind. You definitely do it out loud. We're like, got it. This is going great.
Exactly like that. Okay.
Okay, to be fair, I when I'm processing and taking information, I go very like RBF, so it's very
Oh, got
okay.
it.
I go very like just in the moment processing, so I come across. I'm not interested. No, Nautilus Island, I straight up was not interested in it as you're teaching it. But as it was going, I was like, okay, I see. I'm liking this as it's going. And then I played Orichalcum, and I really, really liked that design a lot. So I think those back to back really put him on the in my mind here. Also, Far Away, we've had a chance to play that. That's one that I don't care for, but I can see why people would kind of think. It's like, oh, I can respect this design, and it keeps him, I think, on that path of up and coming, where he's on his way to becoming a household name. That you see the name, you get the game. Okay. I think, even though I did not care for that design specifically. So, anyway, my number 2, Johannes Goupy.
I'm gonna say this right now, okay? Because my number 1 is a crossover, but not Johannes Goupy, who's someone that I really can see. He's also in another one of those like 11, 12 positions.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's done so many games that I've really enjoyed lately, and even some of the ones that I didn't love as much. So yeah. But my number 1 is a crossover with Zee, and I was a little bit surprised by this.
Okay.
Are you looking there? You're thinking, or you want me to just say it? Herman P. Millan is my number 1.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, I know
Good
you really
call.
liked some of those, like Bamboo, Batoku, I think you really liked as well. I know Bamboo you've been like really enjoying, right?
Bamboo is my favorite of his that I've played, simply because it's the easiest to set up, it's the easiest to actually get tabled, but I feel like it has almost as much depth as his other 2 bigger, heavier Euro games here.
Right.
Batoku is tremendous. It's just a lot of setup.
Okay.
Sabika is one that I think is from Ludo Nova last year that hasn't gotten a ton of love, but it's a really cool rondel game where you have kind of 3 like interlaced rondels, and like your actions mean a lot. It almost feels a little bit like Voyages of Marco Polo, where you're doing this main action driver, but there's also a map to move around. There's also these contracts, these poems to fulfill, and even though it has a big spread, it never loses itself.
Okay.
So he's an incredibly impressive designer. But Bamboo has been so much fun because it's the same, not same, but it has a lot of depth for how small the box is, for how simple the game mechanisms are, and it's just adorable. Both of those top 2 being from De Vere, a Spanish company.
Right.
He's from Spain, and so.
Yeah,
rub the salt in
right
it.
now it's not where publishers are from too. I'm really behind the boat here.
I bring that up because like he's the 4th Spanish designer on my list. So I think kind of Zee to France is kind of me to Spain at the moment.
That's interesting.
A lot of the up and coming designers I'm looking at, I'm like, wow, this whole fifth Spanish designer I think on my list. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, Herman P. Millan.
Very nice. All right, so my number 1, is indeed a crossover with you.
Sorry.
Because it is Johannes Goopy, who was an easy number one for me, actually. And the games here, Far Away, like you mentioned, Nautilus Island, or Chalcom, Rauha. All of these, by the way, well, Nautilus Island, Far Away, Rauha, are all, I'm pretty sure, 2002 or 2003 releases.
Yes.
Like, again, it's like meteoric rising all of a sudden.
Yeah.
22, 23.
What did I say?
2002, 2003.
Yeah, so they're all like 20 years old, okay? Every single one of these is 20 years old.
He's taking it off like a rocket.
And then, like, he's not on the planet anymore is what I mean, okay? He lives on the moon now. Yeah, 2022, 2023. I live in the past. Or Chalcom is a co-design with Bruno Catala, who, again, I would say is one of those sort of, at this point, grandfather figures in the French design world.
Yeah.
Fedudi, Catala, maybe even Antoine Boza at this point.
Yeah.
He's a little younger than those guys, but, you know, he's also, again, like an established, respected board game designer. And I think, for me, Johannes Goopy is becoming one of those people.
And fast, too.
And fast.
Yeah, I would say that's the one. I almost didn't include him because of the number of designs, but the reason I did, and I think I justified he has a place here, is because of that, how quickly it's been.
Right.
But how they're all very well developed. They feel very different in a
Right.
short amount of time is so impressive.
And to be fair, all of these designs, I think all of them, are co-designs.
Yeah.
Okay? They have, he's like Théo Rivère on one, Catala on another one. Other French designers, and I do feel a little bad to not give credit to some of these folks that have crossovers with Goopy, with other designers, but sort of looking at the web of these folks, and it's hard, it's because, again, they work with a lot of different people. He rose to the top for me. That's really what it is. And I have 10 spots, But I'm really excited about all of these new, fresh faces coming out of that gaming scene, and that design scene, I should say. And he just seems to be the one rising to the top for me personally. So Johannes Goopy, my number one.
All right.
Almost a three-way crossover.
Wow.
Yeah. I will say the number one, we've all had a crossover with somebody else, because my number one is Danny Garcia, who did Barcelona and then Arborea. For all the reasons Chris said here, I think that they're just really interesting Euro designs. And I think just two back-to-back really strong, well-regarded games, mechanically and also fun factor.
Right.
It's really, really impressive here. So yeah, for everything Chris said, Danny Garcia is my number one.
All right. Well, thank you, Ajax, for the super chat. What's he saying here? He's talking about Peter Lee. He's been around for a while, but he just started his own company. Aberration being his newest. Horrify, Lords of Waterdeep. Yeah, that's definitely another one of those names. And there were lots of those names. It was hard to bring it down to 10, at least for me. Chris was mentioning, that's like 11 or 12. I agree. I could have made this a 20 people list, and still felt like I was barely scraping the surface.
Right. And to Ajax's point there as well, I mean, one name that I strongly considered as well was Johnny Pack, who, if you look at him, he has a lot of games to his credit.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of those he was a developer on, not designer, and now we're starting to see some of those designs. He has done designs in the past, I know that, but they are becoming more of his own, and you're seeing more of his hand in those.
And he's making more of a name for himself now, I think, than he was when Coloma first came out.
Right, exactly. And so for that, I considered him. But there's just others that I thought were a little newer on the scene, more up and coming. So,
Yeah, I had a few like that just happened to fall off the list as well. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully that 20, how many is that? 24 or so different people, 25 or so different people, is enough for you to go on an exploration yourself and maybe discover some new games, maybe try some up-and-coming designers' ideas and discover a new favorite, So there you go, everybody. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you very much. I think this is the last live thing we have this week, right?
And next week, actually. So
and
it's the next
next week
Well, next week
we have Dice Tower TV. Which is,
Yes,
it's
that's that live stuff. I'm sorry. Yeah,
you'll be seeing all sorts of things. And we've also got the 12 Days of Christmas videos are still going up.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
sure you check those out.
I have a Q&A tomorrow. I
Oh,
forgot
yeah.
about that.
And Chris has a Q&A tomorrow. Like I was saying, that's the last
Right.
live thing this week. Okay?
Be sure to tune into it.
As I said moments ago. Chris's Q&A.
We'll just edit that other part. We're good. We're good.
We can't edit this, Chris. We were full steam ahead. All right, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate you. My name is Zee Garcia.
I'm Camilla.
And I'm Chris Yee.
Catch you on the next one.